the first matchup of Super Wildcard Weekend, Saturday late afternoon, 4:30 Eastern Time. Then it's Patriots-Bills on CBS. 3 games on Sunday, highlighted by Niners-Cowboys on CBS in the middle game. And then we also have a Monday night game to round out Super Wildcard Weekend, Cards and Rams, 8:15 Eastern on Monday. Charles Davis here to break down the AFC matchups this weekend. And Charles, let's begin with the Raiders and Bengals. Now, we've talked a lot throughout this season about the Raiders because you've probably called more Raiders games than anyone nationally. How did they keep things together on the field while going through maybe one of the more tumultuous off-field seasons a team has been through in a long time?
I don't think we can give enough credit to 2 people. And it starts with the general manager, Mike Mayock, and it goes to the interim head coach, Rich Bisaccia. Now, the rest of the staff gets credit as well because they didn't fold or cut bait and run, right? They hung in there with this team as well through some incredibly trying circumstances that we never will downplay because of the seriousness of some of those circumstances. But at the same time, you're trying to complete a 17-game schedule. You're trying to get to the playoffs for the first time since 2016 and only the second time since 2002. How do you get that done? Rich Bisaccia touched every part of that team as the special teams coach. That came into play when he became the interim head coach because they all knew him and trusted him right from day one. Mike Mayock, who was brought in by John Gruden as a general manager, now truly becomes his own guy, becomes his own man in that position, making moves, working in hand with Rich Bisaccia, making sure that team has what it needs. And finally, let's give a little credit to those guys in the locker room. You know, they had so many bumps along the way. In fact, as you mentioned, Chris, I called so many of their games. I was often calling games when there was really serious circumstances. John Gruden's time frame, right after Ruggs' tragedy. All of those things came into play. They didn't play well after those in those weeks, but somehow they hung in there, got it done, even with the turnover numbers against them, you name it. A lot of grit and determination in that locker room. They deserve a lot of credit, but I really think that Mike Mayock and Rich Bisaccia really set the tone.
And Derek Carr in that locker room, such a leader. I think he won over a lot of fans this season. He's going to get to play in his very first playoff game because the last time they were in the postseason, he was not able to play in that one. On the Cincinnati side, they're trying to win their first playoff game since 1991. They've lost, I think it's 8 straight playoff games. It's hard to imagine it's been that long for a Bengals franchise that seemingly was in the playoffs every other year under Marvin Lewis.
Yeah, and I think the Bengals fans right now are saying, Chris, you have to be so precise in the number that they lost in. You have to really put that and throw a little more salt in the wounds. But you're right about that. Look, what Marvin Lewis did there as he built that operation, and then year in and year out, they were competing for the AFC North title and a possibility of getting to the playoffs, being a wild card, but not not able to win one of those games. Had many opportunities. I think the biggest one was that Pittsburgh game. Remember? That game was in hand. But they brought in some guys that you worried about going into it. And during that game, they were the ones that cost them. Pac-Man Jones, Vontaze Burfict, cost them down the stretch. Not entirely, because Burfict made a heck of an interception that game as well. But the big penalties that crushed them. Now it's a new time, a new regime. Zach Taylor is the head coach. But Joe Burrow is the quarterback, and that team believing in him and him having the same type of a swagger that Boomer Esiason, my colleague, our colleague here at CBS Sports, had when he was the quarterback of those Bengals team that went to a couple of Super Bowls. Being able to ride that guy, that quarterback, that captain of your team, and him setting the tone, things could be different right now because this is a Cincinnati team that finally won 3 in a row for the first time since feels like forever. I believe it was 2015. Beat Kansas City down the stretch. This team has a different feel about it, led by Joe Burrow. This is a great opportunity, though. And let's face it, Chris. Here come the Raiders who clawed their way in. The Bengals setting a new tone. That's going to be a heck of a game.
Bengals won the regular season matchup back in Week 11 by 19, but not the same Raiders team, I don't think, then that we have seen the last several weeks. So that's going to be the first game.
That's one of the games I called to the Raiders, by the way. That's one of the many games.
One of many. Yeah, one of many. Looking forward to that one to kick off Super Wildcard Weekend. You're going to be on the call, though, for the rubber match between the Patriots and the Bills in Buffalo. And this was, the road team won both games in the regular season. What was the difference in game 1 to game 2, and what's going to be the difference in this game 3 that will decide everything?
Well, I think the difference from game 1 to game 2 was how Buffalo came out with such extra aggressiveness. And I'm not talking about just being physical, which they wanted to be, but how they went forward on 4th and 2 on their first drive, how they were 3 or 4 on 4th down throughout the game, how they pressed it throughout. And Josh Allen was huge in that ball game. After the first game, when New England ran it down their throats and only threw the ball 3 times, that's insulting to a team. That questions you in terms of confidence and in your toughness. They came back big in that ball game. But New England in the second game just didn't execute. 1 of 10 on 3rd downs. They were still hanging around in that game despite how well Buffalo played. To me, this game comes down to, if Josh Allen plays the way he played in the last game, is he going to set the type of tempo and tone where he's out in front with his ball club and they want to make Mac Jones, the rookie quarterback from New England, chase them down? Because that's been the formula in 3 of their last 4 losses. They've had to play from behind. And can you make Mac Jones be the guy to try and make plays down the stretch? That hasn't happened to New England's satisfaction thus far. I think it will happen one day. Buffalo just hopes it doesn't happen this weekend in Buffalo. So that's where I think the difference was in those 2 ball games.
In postseason divisional matchups, the home team has failed to cover the spread in 7 straight games dating back to 2014. So the road team has had an advantage in the postseason in divisional matchups of late. Let's move on to Pittsburgh and Kansas City. It's a matchup we saw a few weeks ago, and Kansas City blew out Pittsburgh. And I think then, Charles, we were thinking, okay, Big Ben, last home game, let's wave him goodbye. Great. Okay, move on. This swan song just continues to go on and on and on. It's like an Oscar acceptance speech, and they're trying to play him off. Big Ben's not going away, is he?
No, he's not. And he told them, tell the band to just pipe down. I'm going to keep going. Okay. So I don't care if you're going to play me off. But what I think that he's going to ride off into the sunset at whatever time that ends with incredible satisfaction about what they did down the stretch to get there. Because as you noted, Chris, they went to Kansas City a few weeks ago and absolutely got destroyed. Yet that team found a way to get it back enough that they put themselves in a position that when the Raiders won the game, they got into the playoffs, and now they're going to go up and play again. Now, I'm not predicting that they go to Kansas City and win, but I
think we lost Charles Davis there, who is going to be on the call for the Bills and Patriots. What was that, Noah? Oh, Super Wild Card Weekend. Sorry. I just heard him say, Super Wild Cup! In my ear, and I wasn't sure what he was getting to. But this is
a lot going on in control room.
Yeah, they're trying to reestablish connection with Charles. He's going to be off tomorrow to head to that game, but we're going to get him to preview the NFC Super Wild Card tomorrow as well before he heads off to Buffalo to call that Patriots-Bills game. All right, Charles is back with us. Reestablished connection there. Sorry we lost you. Hey, we're talking about this Pittsburgh-Kansas City game and Patrick Mahomes. You go back to the first month and a half of the season, we were asking questions like, are the Chiefs going to miss the playoffs? And now, Charles, we sit here. They have home field advantage probably for at least the first 2 rounds of the postseason. They're the favorites once again. What's the likelihood of Patrick Mahomes making a 3rd straight Super Bowl appearance?
Better than what it was when we saw them leave Nashville at 3-4 and got beat 27-3. That's for sure. And they would love a rematch with those Tennessee Titans because they feel like they're an entirely different team for a few reasons. One, that young offensive line has grown up. Okay. Creed Humphrey may be the all-pro center this year. Trey Smith at guard. Second thing is Patrick Mahomes has found patience as a quarterback. He'll still hit the big shots, but he'll take what you give him until that presents itself. And he still has his top targets in Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and the rest of that crew. And last, how about the defense over the last month and a half? Got all their pieces together. Steve Spagnuolo, just like Remember the Titans. I don't run a heck of a lot of stuff, but it's like Novocaine. May take a while, but it always works. That's what it's like for Spags. Each and every year we question their defense, and down the stretch, they play really well. And let's face it, Picking up Melvin Ingram, has that not paid off? About the play he made in Denver. We forced the fumble, Nick Bolton picks it up and runs it in. So they're not just making plays on defense, they're scoring and putting their offense in better positions. That's why Kansas City has a chance now. This had been a month and a half ago, I wouldn't say that because the defense was sputtering. But now, typical Spags team, they're ready to go.
And they are the heaviest favorite on Super Wildcard Weekend, almost a 2-touchdown favorite against Big Ben and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Charles Davis, thank you so much. We'll look ahead to the the NFC games with Charles tomorrow as Super Wildcard Weekend kicks off Saturday with a couple of games. Charles is calling Patriots Bills. That's on CBS, along with the Sunday 4:30 Eastern Time game between the 49ers and Cowboys with the closest spread, the tightest spread of the week. Cowboys favored by just about a field goal against San Francisco.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.